So this evening we got a book that is over 300 years old. I forget exactly how old, so we're going to find out when we open this up. And I think it's closer to 350 years old. I'm not sure what adjective I'm going to use in the title and thumbnail to describe just how ridiculously old it is, but it's really, really old. You can see here I spent almost $100, right around $100, 57 pounds, British pounds. I mean, it's nice packaging, so we're gonna get some ASMR out of it. Go from right to left. From right to left. We are going to be looking at a book from the 1600s tonight. I still can't believe I can get my hands on books this old. Still in reasonably good shape. I don't think it's not in as good a shape as some of these other books we have here, but still, just the fact that it's this old is, for me, it's really priceless. But fortunately, I do have a limit, so I do have a price. But now that I have it, it's priceless. But, you know, everything does have a price, so you guys let me know if you can pay my mortgage for a year, then it might not be so priceless. But I got this book from, I think it's from eBay. It's from a seller called Yield Bookworms Limited. And, yeah, everyone always wants to know where I got these books. So mostly it's on eBay. Sometimes it's, you know, other thrift book sites online. But, you'd be surprised. I actually had a little bidding war with someone at the very end. I wasn't gonna pay more than $50 initially, but, in the format of having a bidding war in the last 30 seconds after watching an item for, you know, a couple days is really addicting. It's really, really fun, as long as you don't go over what you know, wanted to spend, which I kind of did. But, you know, I think books, especially books this old, and books like this one that have some substance to them, they just accrue value. They accrue interest. So it's not a depreciating asset. It's very much an appreciating asset. It's like real estate for the most part. Alright, so let's go ahead and crack this book open here, this package. Let's get into this fragile, very historic package right here. And I do love the fact that some people bring up is that I wonder what the authors or the printers of the book would have thought if they could have, or if he could look centuries ahead, he or she, and seen the destiny, the fate of one of their books just being shown to a few thousand people, but, you know, across the world through these magical video photograph devices. Alright, how are we going to break into this? It feels like there's some cardboard there, so I don't think I'm going to risk popping the knife through there too much. Let's find out. That's part of the fun, though, isn't it? Just as long as I don't pop the knife through me. Just gonna pop a little hole here. Then maybe we can fit our scissors. Yeah, let's try to fit the scissors in. I've had some nasty run-ins with knives. Just trying to open packages way too many times in my lifetime to be as careless as I was about to be. Alright, let's check it out. And I'm in Florida, in the United States, so this took a nice long trip over. I'd imagine in an airplane, but, you know, at the same time, might have been in a ship, container ship or something, so who knows what kind of conditions this book was exposed to, but I don't know, my judgment was to leave it in the packaging so that it didn't get exposed to the humid Florida heat. My house sometimes gets a little hot, but I don't know, maybe I should have opened it up. It's been sitting in my room for a couple weeks now, so hopefully I didn't ruin the book. Keep you guys guessing. Okay, so you guys, where are we here? So yeah, we got some cardboard packaging. So this thing looks like it was pretty well packaged up. Pretty happy with this. The package actually got here pretty darn quick. It's within under 2 weeks, maybe within like 10 days. Alright, let's put that there. Let me just see if they wrote a note or anything in the packing slip here. Okay, so it's just for customs purposes, I guess. I don't know why they had three copies of it, but they did. So, anyways, we'll get to the good stuff now. All right. Alright, let's see how many more layers we have here. Hopefully I'll put the actual book in the timestamp so you guys can skip this if you want to. But if you don't want to skip it, I'm doing my best to be somewhat graceful. maybe the knife's a better option for me right here. Alright. It's a Russian nesting doll here. Which is awesome, because this book is really, really old. It's a really old book. I would have been bummed out if they just wrapped it up in some thin plastic envelopes. Wow, they got this thing really cocooned in this corrugated cardboard stuff here. Alright, and there we are. Man, this book's taller than I realized. Put that there, get this out of the way. So this is the title page. I don't think it even had the front cover. Okay, let's go ahead and cut the tape here and unravel this. We're almost there. And there it is, 1658. You can kind of see it through the plastic wrap there. Right up the middle here. Okay, there we go. Look at that. Now, honestly, I didn't even remember that they, or realize that they didn't use Roman numerals. I thought before a certain date, certainly before 1700s, they exclusively used Roman numerals, but I guess it's not the case. Alright, let's put this aside here. Awesome. Man, look at that. Let's just look at the book first here. Okay. Let me lift this light up a little bit. Alright. Wow, you can see just the texture of the old 365 years old. And look right there. It almost looks like it looks like it's colored in my hand. And just the lines. And it's just so clearly made, even though it's made with a printing press. It clearly has the human touch on it. It looks like this is something that would have been like little lines that they put in their template, and they just got a smaller line to finish up to match the width right there. Going from left over to the right there. It's a little bit off right there, and it's the same thing about what gives the human, a human art picture, the human voice even, human touch, an in-person experience, such a unique feel is the imperfections. It feels very moist, feels very like human, not crispy and dry like some books do, so that's why I'm bending the pages. I'm gonna smell it for you guys here. We're getting real tactile here. And maybe in 10 or 20 years, we'll have smell-o-vision by then. Just listen to that. Oh no. So it looks like this page came out of the threading right there. I don't want to believe that I did that, so we're gonna pretend that was already like that. Just look how worn. Oh, that's what makes the sound there. Look how worn this page is right here. So this book is what do we say? About 350 years old. It's called Pseudodoxia Epidemica, or Enquiries into very many received tenets and commonly presumed truths. There's that S, kind of shaped like an F. And we found out from our last video that the reason has something to do with the different way you stress the S. Kind of like you can have short and long vowels. You can have a short or long S, presumed. So it's less of a short S, more of a long, almost a Z sound to it. By Thomas Browne, Doctor of Physics. Again, that physic, instead of physic, corrected, and that's kind of like an X sound, C and the T, they connect it together right there, and they, I guess, I think most books got rid of that, the F looking S and the CT connection. by the mid to late 1700s. It's the third edition, corrected and enlarged by the author, together with some marginal observations in a table, alphabetical at the end, alphabetical with 2 L's. Ex Libris, man. Hopefully someone can translate that. Ex Libris collegiae qua prodiderunt, authors long est or est periculo, and I don't know if those are F's or S's, but periculosissimum referum ipsarum cognitio vera erubus ipsis est or est. Printed in London by R.W. for Nathan Ekins at the Gun Inn, Paul's Churchyard in 1658. 1658. Awesome. And so, talking about the actual content of this book here, I thought it was really interesting from the perspective of almost, very early nascent Enlightenment times, or maybe not quite nascent, but before the full blooming or budding of the Enlightenment in science, kind of in the throes or the beginnings maybe of the scientific revolution. We have 1658, an inquiry into many commonly presumed truths. So this is kind of like a debunking book, a skeptics, a book for skeptics. And you know what, this book is so old, I think we gotta light a candle just for tradition's sake. And let's find out when we unbox old books. I feel like it's only right. This book was probably read by candlelight until like 100 years ago, so let's make it at home, right? Oh man, I'm hilarious. So this book, for the skeptical value, it's like, what would Michael Shermer write 350 years ago? So this is already fell off here, so let's take a close-up look here. Table of contents, the first book, and I'm not sure if this is just book number 1, or if you have all books together in this volume. Said, of the first cause of common errors, the common infirmity of humane nature. A further illustration of the same. Chapter 2. Chapter 3 is the of the second cause of popular errors, the erroneous disposition of the people, of the nearer causes of common errors, both in the wiser and common sort, misapprehension, fallacy, and false deduction, credulity, supinity. What's that word right there? I feel like so many of you are so helpful in figuring out ways to translate or kind of break down, understand the wording. Supinity. I've never heard that word. Adherence unto antiquity, tradition, and authority, contained in the following chapters. Antiquity. Obstinate adherence to antiquity, unto authority. I remember in Will Durant's, it might have been the Story of Philosophy, and he talked about how Aristotle defined, he was known as the philosopher to medieval Europe. And so for almost 1500 years, and that's kind of like interesting connection to this book, is that 1658, they were just emerging out of the dominant influence of the Christian spiritual religious paradigm, informed with the kind of academic arm. And for anyone who actually knows this stuff out here, forgive me for probably getting it, you're either wrong or really oversimplifying it here. But from what I understand, Aristotle was so revered, and because he was so prolific in his time, the Greeks and then the Romans and then civilizations, monks and Muslims, Arabs, and early Christians in Europe all copied his texts, so they got transmitted through monasteries and different universities, early academic institutions. And what that meant is that his speculation about natural phenomena got transmitted as well. And so the obstinate adherence into antiquity, or unto antiquity, to me might be some sort of hint. We'll have to read it to really find out, but some sort of reference to the fact that for almost 2,000 years, 1,500 years, many of the observations, if they didn't directly contradict the gospel or the Bible, they were just assumed to be true of the observations and speculations of Aristotle, which he might have gotten many right. And some say that he even, I want to say anticipated evolution. Maybe not though. But I do remember one thing that Will Durant said was that one thing that can't be forgiven was Aristotle's assertion that women had fewer teeth, I think, than men. And Will Durant, of course, in his humorous way of writing, said that, that might be a telltale sign that Aristotle wasn't as familiar with women as he was men. To get such an easily falsifiable or easily testable thing wrong. So anyways, I'm curious. This whole book for me was like a really, really interesting look at what the mind of an early scientist, someone emerging out of a worldview dominated by mostly Christian. This was printed in London, and be Christian for sure. Worldview, paradigm. Everything was spiritual, everything was ordained by God, and manipulated and motivated by angels and spiritual powers and forces. And on top of that, think about all the superstitions and tenets and commonly presumed truths that must have evolved and, passed on from generation to generation over thousands of years in England and I guess wider Europe, maybe. A lot of it, wives' tales, and a lot of it not necessarily false, but it's interesting that not only to find out what they are, but to find out how they might be debunked by this guy, Thomas Browne. And now physic here, I was going to say he was a physicist, of the early sort, but that actually might mean physiology. I'm actually curious what he was. Maybe you guys can look that up. Thomas Browne, Doctor of Physics, right there. That would be really helpful. So, and like always with our unboxings, we're not going to get through much of this book. I just wanted to open it up, take a look at it, and we'll do some follow-up videos on it. So the second book, beginning the particular part concerning mineral and vegetable bodies. The common tenet that crystal is nothing else but ice strongly congealed. That's interesting. It looks like we're missing this here. Looks like it was cut with scissors, just clean off. Maybe it was just about to rip the rest of the page, or maybe someone didn't want their name passed on to the wider world, and now YouTube. So 1814 there. Can someone... Oh, that looks like it says Beverly. Beverly right there on the top. Oh, and then what's this right there? Someone's gonna have to help me with that. I have no idea what that says. Something else that's really, really cool. Well, not really cool, but see a little, it almost looks like either ink or wax splatter right there. Maybe some of you guys already noticed that, but like, what is that? What is that? Is that from, is that from someone with this book open next to a candle, or someone writing next to this book and spilled a little bit of ink, splattered it. And then look at this etched into the title page here. Not sure if I'm getting that in view. Let me go over here real quick. Let's see. Yeah, maybe it's a little easier to see right there. It says MCH. Looks like some type of seal or crest. It's more contrasted in real life than what I'm seeing on camera right there, so not really sure what you guys are able to see. Anyways, I'll post a picture. Is that better? Maybe that's better. Yeah, I don't know. Again, the number of people, the activities they were doing, kind of libraries, what kind of rooms and houses this book might have seen. I mean, maybe it was in the same house for 200 years, and then, another 200 years in the same house, or maybe it changed hands and was in used bookstores. Maybe it was on a ship traveling around the world. Maybe it's been across continents. Who knows? It's part of the mystery of it. I love it. Now here, let's adjust our light again, but concerning the lodestones of things particularly spoken thereof, evidently and probably true, of things generally believed and particularly delivered, evidently and probably false, of the magnetical virtue of the earth. It's a very antique, medieval way of, almost a mystical and very spiritual way of talking about the natural world. And it's even interesting to break down that our modern paradigm, because we're able to, science has been so powerful at objectively isolating natural phenomena, chemical reactions and, different, just anything, and physical laws that we think of. We're trained nowadays to think of the natural world, things outside our brains, as being these lifeless, dead, just objects that we can manipulate and have no soul or spiritual significance. But here they're talking about how there's a magnetical virtue of the earth. The magnetic field that moves a compass is a virtue of the earth. It's about contemporary, slightly before Newton pierced the veil of the universe with his insight into gravity and its development of calculus independently of, but alongside Leibniz. So yeah, it's just amazing that, Descartes and Galileo, this was contemporary with the 15 and 1600s, the great scientists who were planting the seeds for greater, later scientific revolutionaries like Newton and Hooke and Boyle, Darwin eventually, and Lord Rayleigh. I mean, all these great scientists that generation after generation built and changed the way we perceive the world by building the scientific paradigm through experiment and discovery, development of mathematical explanations and descriptions of reality that engineers and machinists were able to develop and use to build more and more powerful steam engines and more complex, devices and machines, like the what's it called? The loom, the mechanical loom. What's that Boards of Canada song? Yeah, just the the amazing clock-like mechanical objects that were able to, be run on steam. Kind of, when you think of a steampunk society, the inventions that the 17 and 1800s scientists were able to come up with before electricity was harnessed and long before nuclear energy was known. It's really amazing, and how it changed the world, led to the Industrial Revolution and the mass production of consumer goods, clothes and textiles, and the mass refinery of ores to make more and more machines. It's amazing. So I think we all underestimate just how much the world has changed from 1658. Everything was much more magical, and I'm being romantic, I know, but everything was much more alive. God was whatever your God was. Yahweh, Allah, God, Jesus. It was the religious view, it still is to a lot of people, but not nearly as many nowadays. The religious view literally informed. It was an unconscious filter that everybody looked through without realizing they were looking through it, because, and not that we're completely separated from it, but science has made it harder to live in a spiritual world, I think. Anyways, so that's 3 pages into this. But enough of my rambling. A reflection or a rejection of sundry, I don't know what that means, opinions and relations thereof, natural, medical, historical, magical, of bodies electrical, of ice, or let, I don't know what that word is. Is this in focus? Amber in particular, that they attract all light bodies, basal and bodies oiled, that might be oiled. Compendiously of several other tenets, that a diamond is made of soft or broke by the blood of a goat, that glass is poison, of the cordial quality of gold in substance or decoction, don't know that word, that a spot or a pot full of ashes will contain as much water as it would without them. Interesting. Trying to see if ashes have volume. Of white powder that kills without report. I don't know, the coral is soft underwater. Oh, okay. Look how they spelled air. A-Y-R-E. Air. That coral, as in coral from a coral reef, is soft underwater but hardened. Or does that say hardeneth? Hardeneth. Hardens in the air. A-Y-R-E. That porcelain in China dishes lie under the earth in 100 years in preparation with some others. Tenets concerning vegetables, that the root of mandrakes resembles that of man, the shape of a man, that they naturally grow under gallows and places of execution. that the root gives... Page is a little messed up here, so I don't know. Does it really say it gives a shriek upon some, being cut? Is that what it says? Try to get out of the shadow for you guys. Anybody trying to decipher at home? I don't want to pull this page. Oh, there we go. That helps a little bit. That it's fatal or dangerous to dig them up. It's all about mandrakes. The cinnamon, which I know is, I think is a pretty significant root in alchemy, I think. Or at least maybe early, medical potions. That's cinnamon, ginger, cloves, mace, are but parts or fruits of the same tree. That mistletoe is bred upon trees from seeds which birds let fall thereon. Of the roll of Arico, that flowers every year upon the Christmas Eve. Upon Christmas Eve, Sephira Cavallo hath power to break or loosen iron. That base preserve from the mischief of lightning and thunder. That bitter almonds are preservatives against ebriety with some others. Okay, I'm going to put this aside and we're going to get into the rest of the book here. Let me get something to... Well, you know what? We can just put this on a little book pad. Alright, that's a little better. The third book, let's see what we got here. How many books? 4th, 5th, 7th. Oh man, there's a lot of books. 4th, 5th, 7th, and that's it, okay. So I'm not going to read all these. I'll show you guys though. And don't worry, that candle isn't touching the book. It's an optical illusion. Third, on the popular received tenets concerning animals. 4th, popular and received tenets concerning man, humans, man and woman. The 5th book of many things questionable as they are described in pictures. That picture of Adam and Eve with navels. An artifact of being born, and if they were created, not born of other humans, they shouldn't have had an umbilical cord. The 6th book concerning sundry tenets, geographical and historical. 7th book concerning many historical tenets generally received and some deduced from the history of Holy Scripture. That the Tower of Babel was erected against a second deluge. Interesting. So they would erect a super tall building, maybe on top of a mountain, to shelter them from another flood. That's a really interesting one. And then that the army of Xerxes drank whole rivers dry, that Hannibal ate through the Alps with vinegar, of the death of Aeschylus, of the cities of Tarsus and Ankylae built in one day, of the great ship Syracusia or Alexandria, of the Spartan boys. Curious what that one's about. Yeah, this whole book, it was over $100 for me, right around $100, but I'm really glad that they showed pictures of this table of contents, because it was what wanted me to try to win that bidding war in the last 30 seconds or so. So many interesting, things I'm interested in, let alone what, on top of what, hearing what this author this doctor of physics has to say about it. So tenets concerning animals, that elephants have no joints, that horses have no gall, that pigeons have no gall. I'm not sure what that means. I'll have to look that up or ask one of you guys. That beavers, to escape hunter, bites off his testicles or stones. Wow, okay. I haven't heard that one. That a badger has the legs of one side shorter than the other. That a bear brings forth her cubs informous or unshaped. Of the basilisk. The basilisk. Is that like a cryptid? I wonder, is the basilisk? I'm gonna have to look that one up. Of a wolf first seeing a man begets a dumbness in him. What? Of the long life of deer, that a king's, I don't even know what that word is. Fisher. Oh, a king's fisher, hanged by the bill, showeth where the wind is. Of griffins. Wow, look at this. This is some really ripe stuff for J.K. Rowling. Of the phoenix. Man, I wonder if she, maybe J.K. Rowling owned this book. Of the pissing of toads, of the stone in their head, of the generation of frogs, salamander lives in the fire, amphibians or serpents with two heads, moving either way, the young viper's force. That hares and rabbits are both male and female. Moles are blind and have no eyes. Snails have two eyes at the ends of their horns. Yeah, I actually wonder that too. Of the unicorn horse? Look at that. All animals in the land are in their kind in the sea. So they have that all land animals have their opposites or their counters in the ocean. This is just this is still pretty fascinating even nowadays. It's really cool. So, you know what? I mean, there's so many. Let's just, maybe we'll go ahead and pick one from each book. Because I know anybody who knows me knows I could, or anybody who's been watching up to this point, knows I can sit here and ramble about almost anything. Not necessarily making sense. So, let's pick one part from each book. If I can even read it, honestly. The S's, the F's and S's kind of throw me off. All I know is I appreciate you guys watching, because I would not have a reason to buy these books or spend this much money on books like this if you guys didn't watch. So I'd be just sitting here without a camera or a microphone, just thumbing through this book and wondering how I'm going to pay for it. So hopefully, if enough people watch it, maybe they'll pay for this book at least. But I'm just also super glad enough of you guys are interested in old books like me. And look, like this line right here. Well, I guess, yeah, you guys could see it. Alright, don't have to hold it up, but that's just so cool. Like, that wiggly line. It's just so obviously, I don't know, I love how imperfect it is. It's really cool. Alright, let's look at chapter 6. The obstinate adherence to antiquity. It looks like chapter 1 was a lot to do with the fall of man in the Bible, in Genesis, about Adam and Eve getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden, deceived by Satan, which is interesting, his take on it. I guess he's trying to, well, I don't know exactly what he's trying to do. But let's look at I'm just happy I can thumb through the pages of this book much more easily than my astronomy book, because I still want to go back and look at that book, but it's really, really brittle. These pages are much more malleable, I guess. Okay, chapter 7. Someone's writing right there. Another de mirabilibus narrationibus, written long after by Antigonus. Another also of the same title by Plegan Traianus, translated by Xylander. All whereof make good of the promise of their titles, and may be read with caution, which if any man shall likewise observe in the lecture of Philostratus concerning the life of Apollonius, or not only written in ancient writers, but shall carry a wary eye on Paul Venetius, Jovius, Olaus Magnus, Nurembergius, and many others. I think his circumspection is laudable, and he may thereby decline occasion of error. Wow, I don't even know what that said. I'm really confused. A brief enumeration of authors. I thought this was chapter 8. I feel like I'm lost. Is this matching up? On the obstinate adherence to antiquity. Okay. Chapter 6. Alright, I'm looking for chapter 6. Alright, my mistake. On adherence to antiquity, of adherence unto antiquity, but the mortalest enemy unto knowledge, and that which hath done the greatest execution upon truth, hath been a peremptory adhesion, that F gets me every time, unto authority, and more especially the establishing of our belief upon the dictates of antiquities. For as every capacity may observe, most men of ages present so superstitiously look on ages past. I gotta be careful that I'm not doing that right now. That the authorities of the one exceed the reason of the other, whose persons indeed being far removed from our times, their works which seldom with us pass uncontrolled, either by contemporaries or immediate successors, so unedited, I guess. We rarely see their work unedited, are now become out of the distance of envies, and the further removed from the present times are conceived to approach the nearer unto truth itself. Now hereby methinks we manifestly delude ourselves, and widely walk out of the track of truth. For first, men hereby impose a thraldom on their times. Oh, let me get this in frame here. Which the ingenuity of no age should endure, or indeed the presumption of any did ever yet enjoy. Thus Hippocrates, about 2,000 years ago, conceived in no injustice either to examine or refute the doctrines of his predecessors. Galen, the like, and Aristotle most of any. Yet did not any of these conceive themselves infallible, or set down their dictates as verities irrefragable, irrefutable truths, I guess. But when they either deliver their own inventions or rejected other men's opinions, they proceeded with judgment and ingenuity, establishing their assertion not only with great solidity, but submitting them also unto the correction of future discovery. That's humility right there. The seeds of science, scientific method. Secondly, men that adore times past consider not that those times were once present, that is, as our own are at this instant, and we ourselves unto those to come, as they unto us at present. As we rely on them, even so will those on us, and magnific us hereafter, or magnify us hereafter, who at present condemn ourselves. Which very absurdity is daily committed amongst us, even in the esteem and censure of our own times. And to speak impartially, old men from whom we should expect the great example of wisdom do most exceed in this point of folly. Commending the days of their youth, they scarce remember, at least well understood not. Extolling those times their younger years have heard their fathers condemn. And condemning those times, the grey heads of their posterity shall commend. And thus is it the humour of many heads to extol the days of their forefathers and declaim against the wickedness of times present. Isn't that a perennial truth? Which, notwithstanding, they cannot handsomely do, without the borrowed help and satyrs of times past, condemning the vices of their times, by the expressions of vices in times which they command, which cannot but argue the community of vice in both. And so he says, Horace, therefore, Juvenal and Persius were no prophets, although their lives did seem to indicate a point at our times. There is a certain lift of vices committed in all ages and declaimed against by all authors, or a certain list of vices committed in all ages and declaimed against by all authors, which will last as long as human nature, or digested in the commonplaces, may serve for any theme and never be out of date until doomsday. Thirdly, the testimonies of antiquity, and such as pass oraculously amongst us by word of mouth, through orally, were not, if we consider them always so exact as to examine the doctrine they delivered. For some, and for those the acutest of them, have left unto us many things of falsity, controllable not only by critical and collective reason, but common and contrary observation. Hereof there want not many examples in Aristotle. Through all his books of animals, we shall instance only in 3 of his problems, and all contained under one section. The first inquireth, why a man doth cough, but not an ox or a cow, whereas notwithstanding the contrary is often observed by husbandmen. Maybe that's like animal husbandry. It's like a farmer, or a cattleman, cowboy, a rancher, and stands confirmed by those who have expressly treated de re rustica, and have also delivered remedies for it. So why juments or rumens, as horses, oxen, and asses, have no eructation or belching, no burping, whereas indeed the contrary is often observed, and also delivered by columella. And thirdly are solus homo, some Greek text. Maybe you guys can read that. Salus Homo. Why man alone hath grey hairs, whereas it cannot escape the eyes, and the ordinary observations of all men, that horses, dogs, and foxes wax grey with age in our countries, and in colder regions many other animals without it. So there you go. He lists a bunch of things: cows coughing or burping, cows, horses, oxen, and asses, and then animals having gray hair. Aristotle seemed to think they didn't. Other authors write, often dubiously, even in matters wherein it's expected a strict and definitive truth, extenuating their affirmation. What was that? Did you guys just hear that? That was weird. Maybe that was like a bubble. Yeah, it seemed like it was a bubble in the wax there. That was really weird. I'll have to look at that during editing. I'll leave it in I'll leave it in. Even in matters wherein it's expected a strict and definitive truth, extenuating their affirmations with something as Dioscorides, Galen, Aristotle, and many more. Others here say, taking upon trust most they have delivered, whose volumes are mere collections drawn from the mouths or leaves of other authors, as may be observed in Pliny or Aelian, Athenaeus, and many others, not a few transcriptively, subscribing their names unto other men's. This guy's a bit verbose. I'm going to try to skip ahead. Even the magnified Virgil hath borrowed almost all his works, his eclogues from the Theocritus, his Gorgics from Hesiod and Aratus, his Aeneid from Homer, the second book thereof containing the exploit of Sinon and the Trojan horses, But Marcellus Empiricus, who hath left a famous work, De Medicamentis, hath word for word transcribed all Scribonius Largus, De Compositione Medicamentorum, and not left out his very peroration. Maybe that's opinion, I guess. And thus we perceive ancients were but men, even like ourselves. The practice of transcription in our days was no monster in theirs. Plagiary had not its nativity with printing. It began in times when thefts were difficult and the paucity of books scarce. Wanted that invention. He's talking about plagiarism. Fourthly, while we so eagerly adhere to antiquity and the accounts of elder times, we are to consider the fabulous condition thereof, and then we shall not deny if we call to mind the mendacity of Greece, the pride, I think, arrogance, from whom we've received most relations, and that a considerable part of ancient times was by the Greeks themselves termed, I don't know. Oh, I'm out of frame here. Sorry, guys. Tell me what that word is there. That is, so a considerable part of ancient times was by the Greeks themselves termed made up or stuffed with fables, stuffed out with fables, and surely the fabulous inclination of those days was greater than any since, which swarmed so with fables, and from such slender grounds took hints for fictions, poisoning the world ever after, where and how far they exceeded may be exemplified from Palephatus in his book of fabulous narrations, that fable of Orpheus, who by the melody of his music made woods and trees to follow him, was raised upon a slender foundation, for there were a crew of mad women retired unto a mountain, from whence, being pacified by his music, they descended with bows in their hands, which unto the fabulosity of those times proved a sufficient ground to celebrate unto all posterity the magic of Orpheus's harp, and its power to attract the senseless. Oh my God, look at that. That's ridiculous. Wait, can you guys see that? Senseless. Good Lord. The senseless trees about it. That Medea, the famous sorceress, could renew youth and make old men young again, was nothing else but that from the knowledge of the simples she had a receipt to make white hair black and reduce old heads into the tincture of youth again. That's fascinating. So he's saying maybe she could just dye hair, and that was how she tricked people into thinking they were young or looked younger. The fable, it's not too far from modern times, is it? The fable of Geryon and Cerberus with 3 heads was this. Geryon was of the city of Tricarnia, that is, of 3 heads, Tricarnia. And Cerberus of the same place was one of his dogs. Which running into a cave upon pursuit of his master's oxen, Hercules perforce drew him out of that place, from whence the conceits of those days affirmed no less than that Hercules descended into hell, and brought up Cerberus into the habitation of the living. Upon the like grounds was raised the figment of Briareus, who, dwelling in a city called Hecatoncheira, the fancies of those times assigned him 100 hands. 'Twas ground enough to fancy the wings unto Daedalus, and that he stole out a window from Minos, and sailed away with his son Icarus, who, steering his course wisely, escaped. But his son, carrying too high a sail, was drowned. that Niobe, weeping over her children, was turned into a stone, was nothing else but that during her life she erected over their sepulchres. She erected over their sepulchres a marble tomb of her own. When Actaeon had undone himself with dogs and the prodigal attendants of hunting, they made a solemn story of how he was devoured by his hounds. And upon the grounds was raised the anthropophagic of Diomedes, his horses. Upon his slender foundation was built the fable of the Minotaur. For one Taurus, a servant of Minos, begat his mistress Pasiphae with child, from whence the infant was named Minotaurus. Now unto this fabulosity of those times was thought sufficient to accuse Pasiphae of bestiality, or admitting conjunction with a bull, and in succeeding ages gave a hint of depravity unto Domitian to act the fable into reality. That reminds me of a story or a show I think I watched on the History Channel where they were trying to debunk the escape of Moses bringing the Jews out of Egypt and how he parted the Red Sea, and saying that they mistranslated the Red Sea. It was a mistranslation of the Sea of Reeds, which was actually a bay instead of the actual sea, the deep sea. It was a bay that simply happened to where the tides coincided with Moses having to cross, kind of go through it, sort of. And the tide had allowed the waters to recede, and just as the Pharaoh and all his chariots came, the tide came back in. It's really interesting takes on all those ancient myths. It's really cool to see and to wonder how old that handwriting is right there. Herodotus writes something of Rome. Maybe you guys can tell me what that says. Okay. We have so many more to get through. I think what I'm going to do is go through this and find a dozen or so really interesting, especially interesting passages, and we'll read them next time. And you guys let me know if you like this book, because there is plenty of material here. I might end up just making a really long video, just me reading the whole book, or attempting to. I still have a hard time getting past the F's and S's. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, thanks so much for giving me an excuse to buy these books. This 350-year-old book. It's amazing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for showing love, guys. I'll see you next time.